The shelter stood on the lonely planet like a block of gray stone built half into the ground half above it. It looked ugly and small compared to the shining alien towers around it. The aliens laughed. Every time they saw it they called it a cave, they called it a waste of time, some even called it a coffin for humans. The shelter was old, not new. The humans had been working on it for decades, slowly and carefully, putting machines deep under the soil, wiring it with strange technology that no alien could understand. The aliens believed humans were weak and foolish. They believed no storm, no danger, no threat could ever reach this peaceful region of the galaxy. Why build such a strange house under the ground when the sky above was so open and beautiful? So they laughed and mocked whenever the subject came up. They called humans paranoid, always afraid of shadows, always preparing for war or disaster, while the rest of the galaxy enjoyed peace and pleasure. But the humans never argued, they never explained. They simply kept working in silence, their faces calm, their eyes focused. It was as if they knew something others did not. One alien governor once stood before the half-finished shelter and gave a speech to his people. He said, "Look at these humans wasting their time and strength on nonsense. Let them hide underground while we rule the stars." The crowd laughed and cheered, their voices echoing in the air, while the humans standing nearby just looked down and kept building. Nobody noticed that the humans kept scanning the skies at night. Nobody cared that their instruments were always pointed toward the stars, recording tiny changes that no alien even thought about. Because the aliens trusted their great fleets, they trusted their strong cities, they believed nothing in the universe could break their power. But high above them something had already begun. It was far away, still hidden behind the edge of the stars, but it was moving, and it was coming closer. When the first small signs appeared, only the humans saw them. The nights grew slightly darker, the stars sometimes flickered in strange patterns, the ground sometimes shook as if something enormous was stirring in space, but the aliens ignored it. When humans quietly warned them, they laughed again, calling it a story to make children afraid. Some said humans were trying to make themselves important by inventing a threat. One alien commander even joked that humans should be storytellers, not builders, because their imagination was endless yet deep. Inside the shelter the humans continued to work. Machines hummed, lights flickered, maps of the stars were spread across glowing screens, strange protective walls were being tested, layer after layer, stronger than any shield in the galaxy. The humans were serious, dead serious. The aliens saw them carrying heavy supplies into the shelter, food, water, machines, power cells, and they said, "Look at them, they will trap themselves inside their hole. What fools they do not know how to live free under the sky." But the humans kept silent. Some alien children even threw stones at the shelter walls, laughing when the stones bounced back harmlessly. Their parents did not stop them. They too believed the shelter was just a silly toy for strange humans. Years passed, and still the humans worked, never slowing, never stopping. It became a joke in the alien markets. Whenever people wanted to insult someone for being fearful, they said, "You are like a human hiding in a hole." Yet every night the stars above flickered a little more. Every year the shadows in the sky grew longer. Every month the sensors the humans carried shook harder, warning of something unseen. One human captain once whispered to his people inside the shelter, "We must finish before it comes. There is less time than they think." But outside the aliens held festivals. They celebrated their growing fleets. They flew banners in the sky while laughing about human fear. No one believed the storm was real because no one except humans had studied the galaxy for centuries. No one else had noticed the patterns, no one else had taken the small warnings seriously. The humans had seen it long ago, long before they even built the shelter, but they kept their secret. They did not shout, they did not force others to listen, they simply built quietly because they knew the truth would reveal itself one day. The day came sooner than anyone expected. The night sky turned red for a brief moment, like blood spilling across the stars. Only the humans understood what it meant. They doubled their work, they locked the doors of the shelter tighter, they whispered to each other, "The storm has touched the edge." The aliens saw it too, but laughed once more, saying it was only a passing flare from a star, nothing more. A few curious ones asked the humans why they looked so serious, but the humans gave no answers because they knew answers would not stop the storm. The mockery grew louder. Some alien leaders even ordered plays and dramas making fun of the humans. Actors wore human masks and hid in fake caves while the crowd laughed until their stomachs hurt. The humans still did not fight back. Their silence was strange, almost frightening, as if they were waiting for the laughter to die on its own. Inside the shelter, the air was heavy with purpose. Rooms were filled with supplies. Long tunnels ran deep underground. Glowing lights hummed in the darkness. Giant doors sealed with layers of metal thicker than battleship hulls. Humans tested the systems again and again, never resting there. Voices calm but cold. Then one night the alien fleets patrolling the far edges of space sent strange messages, short broken signals full of static. They said, "Something is wrong, we see light storms near the void." But before they could say more, silence followed. The fleets were gone, nothing returned. The aliens were shocked, but they refused to connect it with the humans' warning. Instead they said it was a technical failure. They said their fleets would return soon, but they never did. Still the humans said, Nothing, they only looked at the sky with hard eyes. The shelter was almost ready, its machines alive with power, its walls waiting like a fortress deep under the ground. The aliens walked past it, every day, still mocking, still laughing, not knowing that this ugly gray block would soon be the only place left standing when the storm struck, the storm that was already on its way, unstoppable, unforgiving, closer with every heartbeat, and only the humans knew. The night sky above the alien world looked strange. The stars that once shone steady now flickered like weak candles. Some even vanished for seconds before returning. The aliens noticed, but brushed it away, calling it tricks of the eye, or strange dust between the stars. But the humans inside the shelter knew better. Their instruments screamed with warning lights, their screens filled with shifting data. The storm was moving closer, its first signs painting the heavens with silent fear. On one evening, when crowds gathered for a festival, fireworks burst in the sky, but then something odd happened. The fireworks seemed dim compared to a vast glow spreading across the horizon. It was not from their rockets, it was from the sky itself. A giant cloud far away shimmered with red and violet lightning, twisting in silence like a giant beast stretching its claws across space. The crowd cheered, thinking it was beautiful, a rare natural wonder, but the humans, watching from a distance, grew pale. They had seen this pattern before in their records. It was the first whisper of the storm. The aliens laughed again when they saw the worried human faces. One alien shouted from the crowd, "Look, the humans think the sky is falling." The people laughed, but the humans said nothing. Their voices were low. Only inside the shelter they whispered to each other, "It has begun." Some alien leaders received reports from their fleet sensors on distant stations, picked up waves of energy rippling across the stars, stronger than anything before, but the leaders said it was only a passing anomaly. Their pride would not let them admit weakness. They trusted their ships, their shields, their science, but the waves grew stronger each day. Communication signals started breaking apart. Fleets sent messages filled with static, then silence, then nothing at all. Still the aliens told their people not to fear. They said, "Our fleets are the strongest, no storm can touch us." But deep in their hearts a seed of doubt began to grow. When entire fleets vanish without a single scream, questions rise. One alien scientist dared to approach the humans, asking, "What do you know about this storm? Why are your faces so calm?" The human leader looked at him for a long time before speaking slowly. "We knew it would come." The scientist laughed nervously. "Come, you speak, as if you expected this for centuries." The human only nodded, and returned to his work. No further words given. The scientist told his superiors, but they laughed at him too, saying he had been tricked by human fear. But he could not sleep at night, his dreams filled with burning skies. The signs in the sky grew worse. Entire constellations flickered, then vanished for minutes. Long shadows crossed the heavens like waves of smoke. One night, the sky turned dark at the wrong time. No sun, no stars, only emptiness. For a full hour people screamed, thinking the world was ending. But then the stars returned, and the leaders calmed them, saying it was nothing but the humans inside the shelter marked it on their charts, whispering to each other, "It is closer." The aliens began to notice that animals were acting strange. Birds stopped flying, herds refused to leave their caves, the oceans moved in odd tides, rising when they should have fallen. Strange winds howled even when the air was still. The signs were everywhere, but still the laughter continued. Alien children still mocked the humans, chanting songs about cowards hiding in a hole, but their parents no longer laughed so easily. At night, they looked up at the sky, and their smiles faded slowly, doubt creeping into their minds. One alien captain looked at the sky, and said quietly to himself, "The humans might not be mad after all." But he never said it aloud for fear of being mocked himself. The storm clouds in space now shone brighter, each day flashes of lightning big enough to be seen from the ground, even without telescopes, twisted like serpents across the void. Sometimes it looked like a giant hand closing slowly around the planet. The humans worked harder. Their shelter glowed with energy deep underground. New machines hummed in hidden chambers. They stored more supplies, weapons, medicine, power. Every day they went in and out with purpose, their eyes sharp, no time wasted. One alien child asked his father, "Why do the humans work so much?" The father could not answer, his eyes fixed on the sky that now looked broken. The leaders of the aliens called a great council to discuss the strange changes. Some voices finally admitted that maybe the humans had known something, but most still laughed, saying, "It is only nature, nothing to fear, no storm can touch us." One proud leader stood tall and said, "We are the strongest of the stars, no force can shake us, no shelter can save us from what does not exist." And the crowd cheered once more, but even as they cheered, thunder rolled in the sky, thunder from the heavens, not from their world. The sound shook mountains and cities alike, windows shattered, towers trembled, lights flickered. The aliens froze in terror, for it was the first voice of the storm, and it came from far away, yet powerful enough to strike their hearts with fear. The humans did not cheer, they did not panic, they only looked up, their faces grim, whispering, "The first strike is near." They had been right all along, and the sky had just proven it. The aliens mocked the shelter for years, but now for the first time a few of them began to look at its gray walls with quiet unease, for in the sky above signs grew worse each hour. The storm was not just coming. It was racing closer and closer, unstoppable and merciless. The night was alive with fear, even though no alien leader admitted it. The skies flickered more violently each hour, and whispers spread across the streets of the alien cities. Then it happened without warning. A thunder greater than anything before ripped across the heavens. It was not the sound of a storm on a world, it was the sound of stars tearing apart. The ground shook, buildings cracked, people screamed, and pointed to the sky, for they had seen what no eye should see: half the alien fleet guarding the edge of the system vanished in the blink of an eye. One moment thousands of ships shone brightly, the next only empty darkness remained. No explosion, no wreckage, only silence, as if they had been erased from existence. Entire families who had sons and daughters in those fleets cried out, but their voices were lost in the rising roar above. The sky turned crimson with lightning bolts stretching across the void, each bolt bigger than a continent entire. Clouds of fire spread like oceans in the blackness. Then came the second strike. Invisible waves rolled down from the heavens, hitting the planet like a hammer. Shields around alien cities sparked but shattered like glass towers swayed. Cracks spread across the strongest walls. Ships in orbit lost power, falling like stones into the seas below. The aliens who once mocked the humans now screamed for help, but they did not run to the shelter, not yet. Their pride was still heavy, even as the storm punished them. Only a few desperate ones rushed toward the ugly gray structure, pounding on its thick doors, begging to be let inside. The humans were ready. They opened smaller side gates, pulling in those who came, but their eyes were cold. They had worn for years and been laughed at. Still they saved those who begged. Within minutes more aliens arrived, falling on their knees, promising anything, if only the humans would open the shelter. The storm outside grew stronger. The first strike had been only a taste. The second wave built higher, energy like giant claws ripping space itself apart. More fleets tried to fight. They launched their strongest ships, their biggest cannons, into the storm, but their weapons vanished into the void, as if fired into a bottomless sea. Some ships melted under invisible heat, others were torn apart by pressure no one could understand. In the control rooms of the shelter, humans watched quietly, their screens glowing with patterns. The storm was behaving exactly as their old records predicted. Every sign, every stage was unfolding just as they had feared. When one alien governor finally dared to speak through the city speakers, his voice shook. He said, "People of this world, do not panic. Our defenses will hold. This is only a passing wave." But even as he spoke, his palace shook from the force of another strike. The great statue beside him split in two, crashing to the ground in dust. The people no longer listened. They ran, they screamed, they looked at the gray shelter with new eyes. For the first time, it did not look foolish, it looked like hope. The humans stood at the gates, letting in more groups, but space was limited. Already the halls were filling with aliens pressing close, whispering prayers. They did not know the humans had built tunnels deeper far below, but those were hidden, locked away for only when the worst came. Above, the storm roared like a beast alive. Lightning bolts wider than mountains slashed across the void, burning anything caught within. Entire alien stations orbiting nearby worlds fell silent, one by one, gone without even time for a final cry. The pride of the galaxy, the great fleets, the shining cities were helpless against a storm that did not think, did not pause, did not forgive it, only consumed. The aliens had laughed, they had mocked, they had played games, while the humans worked in silence. Now their laughter was gone, replaced by the sound of millions of voices screaming into the night. One alien soldier, once proud and fierce, dropped his weapon as the skies split above, and whispered to himself, the humans were right. He stumbled toward the shelter, not as a warrior, but as a beggar. Inside the shelter the air was tense, machines hummed, the walls shook with every strike outside, yet they held steady, strong, and unbroken. The human leader stood in the central chamber, his face hard, his voice steady, telling both humans and aliens inside, "This is only the beginning. The real storm is still coming." Those words spread like ice through the hearts of everyone listening. Outside, the third wave gathered far above, a light so bright it blinded even through closed eyes. It spread across the heavens, stretching from one end of the system to the other, and then it fell down upon them with the fury of a dying sun. The first strike had erased fleets, the second had broken cities, but the third would decide who lived and who died. The storm had arrived fully, and nothing could hide from its power, except perhaps the shelter the aliens had mocked for so long. Darkness fell across the skies like a blanket of death. The stars disappeared one by one until the heavens looked empty. The storm was no longer far, it was here, swallowing worlds with a hunger that could not be measured. Entire alien fleets had been erased, entire cities broken, and yet the storm still grew stronger. The sound outside was like a billion screams carried on winds that were not winds but raw energy twisting space itself. The aliens on the planet could no longer deny what they saw with their own eyes. Panic spread through the streets, families grabbed whatever they could and ran, but there was nowhere to run, nowhere safe, except the gray shelter they once mocked. The crowds gathered outside its heavy doors, pounding on the walls, their voices rising with fear, begging the humans to let them in. And the humans, though stern, did not leave them to die. They opened gates in order, letting them pour into the great halls inside. The shelter glowed with strange lights, its walls thicker than the strongest battleship, its machines humming with hidden power. The aliens who entered stood in shock. They had thought it was a simple bunker, small and ugly, but inside it was vast tunnels stretched deep, underground chambers lined with supplies, endless crates of food, water, and medicine, glowing engines pulsed with energy, as if the shelter itself was alive. The aliens looked around in awe, whispering to each other, how could humans build this? How long had they been preparing? But the humans gave no answers. They guided the crowds deeper, telling them to stay calm as the walls shook above with every wave of the storm. Outside the sound was terrible, the roar of thunder mixed with the breaking of planets. The aliens covered their ears, crying, yet the humans walked calmly, checking their systems, their faces grim, but not afraid, for they had known this day would come. They had built not for themselves alone, but for this moment when the galaxy would need them. Outside, the storm tore apart the skies. Energy waves slammed into the ground, ripping forests from their roots, lifting oceans into the air. Entire alien towers fell like sand cast into the wind, yet within the shelter there was order. The deeper halls filled quickly, aliens packed shoulder to shoulder, some weeping, some silent, the air thick with fear, but the humans moved among them, steady, their calmness spreading like fire into hearts that moments ago had been drowning in terror. One alien elder whispered, I laughed at them, I mocked them, I told my people they were fools, and now they are the only ones saving us. Tears ran down his face as the humans led him into the safe chambers deep below. More aliens arrived, pounding at the gates, begging to enter, but the space was not endless. Some were left outside, screaming as the storm devoured them, their voices fading into nothingness. Inside the shelter the machines roared, brighter screens lit with patterns, maps of the storm filling entire walls. Human scientists explained to their own kind, the waves are matching predictions. Stage 3 has begun. We must brace for stage 4. The aliens overheard their voices, but understood little, only that the humans had studied this storm longer than anyone, perhaps longer than they had been alive. The shelter's inner walls glowed with strange energy barriers that flickered but held steady as shockwaves battered them from above. Cracks spread across the ground outside, entire valleys collapsed, yet the shelter stood unbroken. The aliens inside pressed closer to the humans, desperate for assurance. One alien mother holding her child whispered, why did we not believe you? Why did we laugh at you? The human guiding her only said, because you wanted to believe the sky was safe, but it never was. The storm is older than your people, older than ours. It was always coming. The aliens stared wide-eyed, realizing for the first time that the humans had not built the shelter to hide in fear. They had built it because they knew something everyone else had ignored. Deep in the core chamber of the shelter, massive engines rumbled, alive, energy coursing through conduits that reached miles beneath the ground. Some aliens looked through the clear walls and saw entire machines buried under the planet, glowing brighter with each passing second. They whispered to each other in disbelief, this is no bunker, this is a fortress built like a world itself. And still the humans worked, moving with purpose, sealing gates, testing systems, every step precise, as if rehearsed 1,000 times, because it had been rehearsed again and again over the years. When others laughed, the storm outside howled louder, waves smashing against the shelter's outer shell, but the walls held. Though the floor shook, the lights flickered, yet did not fail. The aliens huddled together in terror, but every time they looked at the humans they saw not fear but steel. One alien elder turned to his people and said, we are alive only because they prepared, and we mocked them. Now we owe them everything. His word spread through the crowd, though no one dared say it aloud. All knew it was true. The shelter they had called a grave was the only place left standing, the only light in a world swallowed by endless night. The roar outside grew worse, but inside there was still hope, hope built by human hands. The storm outside was no longer a distant roar, it was a monster pressing against the world. Every second the ground shook harder, every minute another alien city fell apart like paper walls. Fleets that had once carried banners of pride were nothing but whispers erased from the sky. The aliens inside the shelter clung to the walls, trembling, unable to believe how powerless they truly were. Their strongest ships, their greatest weapons, all gone in moments. Shields that they swore could hold against anything shattered in less than a breath. Their pride was collapsing, and with it their voices of mockery were replaced by cries of regret. Many of them now remembered the years they had laughed at the humans, the words they had spoken, the jokes they had told, and now every one of those words felt like knives cutting their hearts. One alien commander, who had once stood tall in council chambers boasting of his fleet, now sat in the corner of the shelter with his hands covering his face, whispering again and again, they were right, they were right. His soldiers who once laughed at human weakness now begged the same humans for guidance. The collapse of pride was painful to watch, but it was real. Above them the storm grew crueler, entire mountains lifted into the sky, torn from the ground like toys. Oceans boiled as lightning larger than continents struck the seas, turning water into vapor in seconds. The aliens could not imagine such power, yet the humans did not flinch, their voices steady, their hands Working machines, deep underground machines that pulsed with energy brighter with each strike. One alien scientist looked at the maps glowing on human screens and realized in shock these humans predicted every wave. They know the storm better than anyone. He asked them, how long have you been preparing? And the human leader answered, centuries. We saw the first signs long ago. We studied while others laughed, and we built while others ignored. The scientist felt shame burn through his chest. Centuries, he thought, while we celebrated and mocked, they were saving us. All the pride of the galaxy was broken. The aliens who had ruled for ages were reduced to fearful refugees in a human shelter that they had once called a grave. Every rumble of thunder outside reminded them of their failure. One alien governor stood to speak, his voice shaking. He said, forgive us, we did not believe you. We called you fools, yet without you we would already be ash. But the human leader did not respond with anger or kindness. He simply said, we warned you, pride blinded you, but now pride is gone, only survival remains. Those words cut deep into every alien heart, for it was true, their pride was dead, shattered by the storm. Now they had nothing left but fear, and the humans who held the key to their survival. Outside, the storm clawed at the planet, waves of invisible force tearing continents apart. Entire regions fell silent, their people gone in seconds. Even those who had once mocked most loudly were no more, swallowed by the void. The survivors inside the shelter pressed closer to the walls, listening to the endless roar, knowing that if not for the shelter they too would have joined the dead. One alien elder whispered to another, we used to laugh at this bunker, now we pray to it, as if it were a temple. And the other answered, it is not the shelter that saves us, it is the humans who built it. The collapse of pride was not just in the hearts of common aliens, it was in the leaders as well. Those who once gave speeches of strength now lowered their heads before human captains. Those who once boasted of fleets now begged for instructions. Entire species that once thought themselves greater than humans now saw the truth. They had been blind. The humans had always been different. Their silence, their work, their endless preparation, all of it had been strength, not weakness. The storm outside screamed louder. Waves of energy slammed again and again against the walls. The shelter shook but did not fall. The aliens cried, but the humans stood steady. One alien finally broke down on his knees before the human leader, saying, we mocked you, we hated you, we called you cowards, yet you are the only ones who can save us. Please forgive us. But the human leader's face did not change. He said, we do not ask for your praise, we do not care for your forgiveness, we care only that you understand the storm will not stop. This is only the beginning. His words froze the crowd, because even as their pride collapsed, they realized their suffering was far from over. The storm was growing stronger, every strike worse than the last. The collapse of pride was complete, and now fear ruled every heart. And for the first time in the galaxy's long history, the aliens looked not at their fleets, not at their weapons, but at humanity alone for hope. The storm outside roared like a beast with endless hunger, its voice shaking the ground until even the strongest alien towers fell into dust. Yet inside the shelter there was another world, a world of silence broken only by the hum of machines and the cries of frightened aliens packed shoulder to shoulder in endless halls. The walls glowed faintly with power, each strike from above sending tremors through the ground, but never breaking. The humans walked among the crowd, steady and calm, while aliens shook with fear. Every time thunder rolled, one alien child cried out, asking, when will it end? But no one answered, because no one knew. Only the humans whispered to each other, watching the glowing maps on their screens. They spoke in quiet voices about stages and waves. The aliens tried to listen, but the words made little sense to them. The storm outside screamed again, like 1,000 knives scraping across the sky. The walls shuddered, dust falling from the ceilings. Yet the shelter held strong, built not with pride but with purpose. Deep underground chambers came alive, glowing with strange blue light. Machines unlike anything the aliens had seen before pulsed with energy. Some of the braver aliens walked further inside and discovered the hidden heart of the shelter. Miles of tunnels filled with supplies, food stacked in mountains, water sealed in endless containers, weapons lined neatly on racks as if ready for war. The aliens whispered in awe at how much the humans had prepared, not just for themselves but for many species. It was as if the shelter had been built not as a hiding place but as a fortress for survival. The aliens began to realize a truth that burned them with shame. The humans had built this for everyone, while they had laughed and mocked. One alien elder stood in a corner trembling as he watched the humans operate the machines calmly. He whispered to his companions, they knew all along, they saved even those who spat on them. His words spread through the crowd, soft but powerful, filling the hearts of many with guilt and respect. The humans did not boast, they did not remind anyone of the years of mockery. They simply worked, checking systems, sealing gates, guiding groups deeper into safety. While the storm clawed at the world above, the air inside the shelter grew heavy with tension. Every alien could feel the weight of death pressing from above. Every roar of the storm sounded like the last sound they would ever hear. Yet the humans moved as if they had lived with this Fear forever. One human captain walked through the chambers speaking in a calm voice. This is stage 4, it will pass, but then stage 5 will come, and it will be worse. The aliens gasped, some breaking into tears. Stage 5 worse, they whispered in terror, but the captain did not slow. He moved to the central chamber where the deepest machines stood glowing like stars. One alien scientist dared to ask him, "How can you be so calm? Do you not fear the storm?" The captain looked at him with steady eyes and said, "We have feared it for centuries. Fear is what built these walls. Fear is what prepared us. Now we do not fear, we endure." The scientist lowered his head, ashamed, realizing that what they once called cowardice was in truth courage beyond measure. In the lower chambers, the aliens gathered, their families holding their children close, listening to the endless thunder outside. One alien mother looked at her child and whispered, "The humans will protect us, trust them." The child nodded, though his eyes were wide with fear. The walls trembled again, cracks echoing through the stone, but the machines within the shelter glowed brighter, countering each blow. One alien governor, who once gave speeches mocking humans, now stood silent near the gates, his eyes hollow, his voice broken. He whispered to no one in particular, "I told them they were fools, but I was the fool." The shame was too heavy for him to bear. The humans, however, never stopped moving. One by one they activated deeper systems. The shelter seemed to grow more alive each second, as though the very ground was beating like a heart. Strange energy fields spread through the walls, creating a barrier unseen, but felt. The aliens shivered when the air around them warmed and steadied. It was power they had never known. Their strongest shields had fallen in seconds, yet the humans had built walls that stood against storms, able to erase worlds. One alien soldier spoke aloud to the crowd, "Listen to them. They do not panic. They do not tremble. They move with purpose. We should follow their example." His words gave courage to some who had been drowning in fear. Slowly, the chaos inside the shelter began to calm, not because the storm was weaker, but because the humans were stronger. Their silence, their focus, their steady hearts gave light in a darkness no alien had ever known before. As the hours passed, more waves slammed into the planet, each worse than the last. Entire continents outside were ripped apart, forests burned, oceans rose, then vanished into steam, but inside the shelter life continued, machines humming, people breathing, hope flickering like a small flame in endless night. The aliens finally understood why the humans had built it, not out of weakness, not out of madness, but out of wisdom. The shelter was not just stone and steel, it was the last fortress of life itself, and within its walls the galaxy's pride had died, and in its place a new respect was being born. The aliens now watched the humans, not with laughter but with awe. They whispered among themselves, "These are not cowards, these are saviors." And deep in their hearts, though they could not yet speak it aloud, they knew that, after the storm ended, if it ever ended, the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The storm outside did not weaken, it grew worse with every passing hour, until the very ground shook like it was trying to tear itself apart. The shelter walls groaned, as if they were alive, fighting against something too powerful for words. Above the surface, there was no sky anymore, only fire, lightning, and clouds shaped like monsters. The aliens inside the shelter pressed close together, their eyes wide with terror. Every roar sounded like the end of the world. Yet the humans remained calm. They moved through the chambers like shadows, steady and unbroken. "The storm is not done," one human commander announced into the crowd, his voice echoing across the hall. "Stage 5 is here, and stage 6 is coming." The words hit the aliens like knives in their hearts. If this was stage 5, what could stage 6 be? Some broke into tears, others shook in silence, fear eating away at their pride. One alien general, who once led armies in the stars, grabbed the arm of a human officer and begged, "Tell me, will we live through this?" The human looked at him with tired but fearless eyes and said, "If the walls hold, yes. If they fall, nothing will remain, not you, not us, not even the ground itself." The general staggered back, his pride shattered by the raw truth. Yet the humans never stopped working. Deep within the shelter, new machines awakened, humming louder with each strike. Outside, strange blue light filled the halls, spreading across the walls and ceilings, forming glowing lines like veins. The aliens watched in awe as the humans controlled the storm itself, redirecting energy, breaking its strikes, and holding it back. It was a battle unseen but very real. The storm outside unleashed firestorms, rivers boiled, mountains collapsed, but each time the shelter shook, the walls grew brighter. The humans had built something that was not only stone and steel but alive with power, designed to fight until the last breath. One alien scholar whispered, "This is not a shelter, it is a fortress built against gods." Another replied in a trembling voice, "No, it is more, it is a weapon against death itself." Still the storm pressed harder, its voice so loud that even in the deepest chambers the sound made ears bleed. Children cried, and families clung to each other, praying to stars that no longer shone. Then the ceiling above cracked, dust and stone raining down, screams filled the air, but the humans shouted back with calm orders, sealing the fracture with glowing barriers. The aliens gasped, watching humans form walls of light out of thin Ere ancient tech unknown to them, the shame grew deeper. They had mocked the humans as weak, backward, and foolish, yet here they were standing alive, only because of them. The storm thundered again, louder than before. A wave of pure energy slammed into the planet, outside burning through cities, tearing oceans apart. Even underground the aliens felt the heat, as if the storm itself was reaching to drag them into nothingness. Some fell to their knees, convinced the end had come, but the shelter held, glowing brighter than ever. The humans gathered in the control chamber, their hands moving across strange symbols. The maps showed a world breaking apart, cracks running across continents, as if the planet itself was being torn in half. Still the humans did not stop. One spoke firmly, the core shields must activate now, and with that the deepest machines awoke. The ground shook, not from the storm but from the shelter itself, as energy surged through the planet. The aliens felt the air change, warm and alive, as if the shelter was breathing with them. Hope flickered again, though it was small. One alien elder whispered, "Perhaps they can save us, perhaps they can save everything." His words spread like fire, giving courage to those who were drowning in despair. Yet, outside the storm screamed louder, still turning the surface into molten rivers. Lightning strikes cut across the sky like blades of white fire. The planet was dying, and everyone inside knew it, but the humans continued, unbroken, their faces pale with exhaustion, their voices low but steady. They had prepared for this moment for years. While the galaxy laughed now, they fought not with weapons, but with will and steel, and knowledge. The aliens finally understood that what they once mocked was the reason they were still breathing. One alien soldier stood up among the crowd, shouting in a broken voice, "I was wrong about them, we were all wrong about them." His words filled the chamber, echoing like truth too powerful to deny. Many lowered their heads in shame, tears running as they remembered how they had spat on humans, called them cowards, weak dreamers. Now those same humans were holding back a storm that could erase stars. The shelter groaned again, the walls shivering under the endless force above. "This is not the end," one human commander said, his voice cutting through the fear. "We are not finished yet." But his eyes carried a weight, as if he knew the worst was still coming. The aliens clung to every word, because in this nightmare, only the humans sounded like light. Only the humans carried the courage that could hold them together. As the storm grew worse, as the planet itself trembled on the edge of death, every alien realized the same truth. The shelter they mocked was now the only reason they still lived, and the humans they despised were the only ones strong enough to face the storm still waiting outside in endless fury. The ground shook harder than ever before, as if the world itself was screaming in pain. The shelter walls roared like drums struck by invisible giants. Every alien inside felt their hearts freeze, because this was not like the other strikes. This was something bigger, something final. The humans looked at their machines, their maps, their glowing walls, and they all knew the same truth. The storm had reached its breaking point. Stage 6 had arrived. The ceiling cracked again. Dust fell from above, and the air itself grew heavy, like it was filled with fire. One alien mother clutched her child, crying out in terror, thinking it was over. But then the human commander shouted, "Hold steady, we are not done yet." His voice thundered louder than the storm, and for a moment the fear in the room fell silent. Outside the planet screamed, the oceans turned into boiling clouds, the mountains collapsed into endless fire, and the sky tore open, showing nothing but raw light. The storm was trying to erase the very world itself. But inside the shelter the humans pressed forward, their hands flying across controls, their machines screaming louder with power. As they activated the final defenses, glowing pillars of energy rose from the ground, humming with force. The aliens stared at them in shock, as they realized the shelter was not just buried in the earth, it was fused with the core itself, alive with energy pulled from the planet's heart. One alien whispered, "This is not a shelter, it is the soul of the world." They tied it to the planet. The storm struck again, harder than before, a wave of energy so bright it blinded. Even through walls the aliens screamed, thinking the end had come. But when the light faded, the shelter still stood, glowing brighter than ever. The humans had done something impossible. They had locked the storm out. For a moment hope rose again, but then the walls cracked deeper than before. Glowing lines shivered and dimmed. One by one the power began to fail. The storm had grown too strong. The planet was breaking apart under its weight. Maps showed cracks opening in every continent. The land was splitting like glass, shattering piece by piece. One alien general slammed his fist against the wall, shouting, "We are finished, we cannot win, no one can stop this." The human commander turned to him with eyes burning, and said, "If we were finished we would not be standing here. Fight with us or die in silence." The words hit the crowd like fire, their shame and fear burned away, replaced by something new: determination. Aliens who once mocked the humans now stood beside them, helping steady walls, carrying power conduits, moving with desperate speed. For the first time they were not just surviving because of humans, they were fighting with them. Yet the storm kept pressing harder. The ground roared louder than thunder. Cracks ran through the shelter floors, glowing red with heat. Molten rock, pushing to break inside. Screams filled the chamber as fire burst through the cracks. But the humans moved faster, sealing the Breaches with light walls, their faces pale, their bodies weak, but their spirits unbroken. The aliens watched with awe, realizing humans had gone beyond strength. They were running on will alone. The storm howled again, and the planet buckled more violently. Whole cities above ground sank into fire, entire oceans vanished into steam. The maps showed nothing but red lines splitting across the world. One alien elder gasped, "This is the end of the planet itself. Nothing can hold it together but the humans." Shouted back, "Yes, something can." Us. Their machines screamed louder as they activated the core shield, one final system hidden beneath everything. The shelter itself shook as if it were alive, its walls glowing like the inside of a star. The aliens fell to the ground, covering their eyes as the brilliance grew too bright to look at. Outside, the storm slammed down with one final strike, louder than death itself. The ground split in half, the sky turned into fire, and the planet screamed like a beast being torn apart. Inside the shelter, the walls roared, the machines screamed, and the humans stood unbroken, their voices cutting through the chaos. Hold, hold, hold. The aliens clutched their ears, but the humans did not stop. Their courage echoed louder than the storm, and then everything went silent, so silent it felt like the world itself had stopped breathing. The aliens opened their eyes slowly, afraid of what they would see. The walls of the shelter still glowed, the ground no longer shook, the maps no longer showed cracks spreading. The storm outside had vanished, or perhaps it had been locked away. The humans collapsed to their knees, gasping with exhaustion, but still alive. One alien whispered, "They stopped it. They truly stopped it." Another cried out in disbelief, "No one should be able to stop that, yet they did." The silence grew heavy, filled with awe and fear. The aliens looked at the humans and realized something they had never understood before. Humanity was not strong because of weapons or machines, but because they refused to break, even when the world itself was breaking apart. That was the breaking point, and they had endured it. The silence was the loudest sound they had ever heard. It was a silence that pressed on the chest like heavy stone, a silence after screams, thunder, and fire. The aliens looked around, trembling, unsure if they were alive or only shadows. The shelter walls still glowed, faint but steady like a candle, refusing to die. The humans sat on the ground, breathing hard, their faces pale with exhaustion, sweat dripping from their skin, yet their eyes stayed open, sharp and alert, as if ready for another strike. But the storm had gone. Outside, the maps showed no more violent cracks, no more boiling oceans, no more fire falling from the sky, only darkness, heavy, endless darkness. The planet itself had gone quiet, as if it were holding its breath. One alien dared to ask in a voice barely above a whisper, "Is it over?" No one answered. The question lingered like poison in the air. The alien soldiers who once mocked the humans now stood silently, staring at them with a mixture of shame and awe. They had seen the impossible. Humans had endured something no empire, no machine, no council could ever survive. The aliens had thought humanity weak, small, and foolish, yet it was these same humans who held the world together when even the ground tried to fall apart. One alien elder spoke softly, not to mock, but to confess, "We judged them wrong. They are more than what we thought." Another alien mother who had clutched her child through the storm now looked at the humans with tears streaming down her face, whispering, thank you for saving my child." The human commander looked at her, but said nothing. His face was stone, his eyes hollow with exhaustion, because he knew the truth. It was not over, not yet. The storm had stopped, but the planet was broken. Cracks ran deep into its heart. Entire lands had vanished into fire, seas had turned to steam, and the air outside might not even be safe to breathe. The silence was not peace, it was warning. It was the silence before a second strike. The humans knew it, the aliens feared it, but no one spoke it aloud. Still the silence stretched long and heavy, each second feeling like hours. The shelter felt less like protection, and more like a tomb. One alien finally broke the silence, shouting, "What if it comes again? What if this was only the first wave?" Panic spread through the crowd, their voices rising higher, the sound bouncing off the glowing walls. But then the human commander stood once more, his voice cutting through fear like a blade. "The storm has broken, but we are not broken. We endure. We prepare, we move forward." His words were simple but carried weight enough to calm the room. The aliens fell silent, staring at him as if he were more than human, more than mortal, because only someone touched by fire could speak with such steel in his voice. One alien soldier whispered to another, "Do you not see? They are not like us. They do not bend, they do not break. We must stand with them." The humans gathered again around their machines, scanning the maps, checking the air, checking the core. They spoke in calm, precise tones, while the aliens waited, trembling like children in the dark. One by one the readings came in. The storm was gone, but the damage was vast. Entire continents erased, skies poisoned, seas lost forever. The world they had once known no longer existed. One alien elder cried softly, "The world we mocked them for protecting is gone. The only world left is this shelter." Another alien hissed, "Then we are finished." But a human woman stood and said, "No, not finished, changed." She pointed to the maps. showing faint signs of stable ground, patches of land, untouched by fire, oceans that still held water, even after chaos, small green dots of life still clinging to the broken planet. And she said, where there is life there is hope. Her voice sparked something in the aliens, something small but powerful. They began to murmur, not with fear, but with questions. Could we rebuild? Could we live? Could we stand again? The silence shifted. It was no longer heavy with despair, but heavy with possibility. The storm had tried to erase them, but it had failed. Humans had proven unbreakable, and that unbreakable will was spreading into alien hearts. They had mocked the shelter, called it a grave for fools, but now they understood it had become the only seed of survival. One alien leader fell to his knees before the humans, his voice cracking with shame. Forgive us, we laughed at you, we called you weak, we called you small, but you carried us when we could not even carry ourselves. We owe you everything. The human commander looked down at him and finally spoke. You owe us nothing, you owe the future everything. Help us build it. The aliens listened, and for the first time they did not argue. They nodded slowly, their faces marked with humility and respect. The silence after the storm had become something else, not the silence of death, but the silence before a new beginning, a silence filled with questions and choices, a silence that would decide not just survival but destiny. The first light after the storm did not look like sunrise. It was dim, weak, and hidden behind black clouds. Yet to those inside the shelter, it was more beautiful than any golden dawn, because it was proof that the world still lived. The aliens gathered near the entrance, staring as the shelter doors cracked open slowly with a groan of metal and stone. Air rushed in heavy with ash and dust, but it did not burn their lungs. The humans scanned the air carefully, machines humming, their voices steady and controlled. Then the commander nodded. It is safe enough, they said, and the doors opened wider, revealing a land scarred beyond imagination. Mountains split into jagged teeth, oceans boiled down to steaming lakes, forests burned into black skeletons, but still in the cracks of ruin small shoots of green pushed up, stubborn and alive. The aliens gasped at the sight. Life, they whispered, life remains. One alien fell to his knees and pressed his hands to the dirt, sobbing for both what was lost and what still survived. The humans did not kneel, they stood tall, scanning the horizon, their faces marked not by sorrow but by determination. They had expected worse, they had prepared for worse, and so even in ruin they saw only a new challenge. The alien leaders gathered, whispering, what will we do? Where will we live? How can we start again? They looked at the humans, waiting for answers, waiting for strength, and the human commander finally spoke. We start here, we rebuild, we protect what is left, and we make it stronger than before. His words struck like thunder through the broken crowd, and slowly the fear in alien eyes began to fade, replaced by something else, hope. One alien child clutched her mother's hand and said, if the humans can survive the storm, then we can too. The humans wasted no time. They moved with order, dividing tasks, setting up machines, repairing what they could, building new shelters on the broken surface, while the aliens watched amazed. These humans, who had been mocked for their caution and called cowards for hiding in their shelter, now walked the shattered land as if it belonged to them, as if ruin itself could not deny them. One alien soldier whispered to another, do you see, they do not wait for salvation, they make it themselves. And for the first time he felt the fire of wanting to do the same. Days turned into weeks, the sky remained dark, but the earth slowly healed. Rivers found new paths, green spread across cracks. Life returned stronger and wilder than before, and the aliens worked beside humans, learning from them, following their relentless will. Together they built walls, farms, machines, homes, not out of luxury, but out of survival. The shelter once mocked became the beating heart of a new world, a symbol that even when all else fell, the will to endure stood unbroken. One alien elder said softly to the commander, we called you weak, but you are the strongest we have ever known. The human only answered, strength is nothing if we stand alone, we stand together. Now remember that. The words spread through the aliens like fire, a lesson burned into their hearts. They would never again mock humanity, never again call them small, because they had seen the truth. Humans did not just survive, they made survival possible for everyone. One night, when the stars finally pierced through the clouds, the aliens and humans stood together, watching the sky, silent but united. The galaxy beyond was still vast, still dangerous, still full of powers that might one day come, but in that moment they knew nothing could frighten them again, because they had faced the storm that was supposed to erase everything, yet humanity had turned it into a beginning, a test of fire that forged a new bond. The aliens whispered among themselves, this world will rise again because of them, because of the ones we mocked and scorned, because of humans. And as the first true dawn broke golden across the broken land, the commander looked at the horizon and spoke words that carried across the silent crowd, this is not the end, this is the first day of a new world. We will make it strong, we will make it better, we will make it ours. The aliens cheered with voices that shook the air, their fear gone, their faith born anew. And from that day forward the shelter was no longer a place of shame or laughter, it was a legend, a story whispered to children and leaders alike. The shelter they mocked became the only hope, and that hope built a dawn brighter than the stars.